Today, on the premiere episode of Somewhere in the Indies, we welcome Landon Hale, known in the ring as the Good Doctor.
Welcome, everyone, to the premiere episode of Somewhere in the Indies. Now, you guys know us as Somewhere in the Ring, but look, every superstar you see in these major promotions, they had to start somewhere, and that was somewhere in the Indies. So we are so honored and excited to have our first indie wrestler guest on Somewhere in the Indies, and that is Doctor of Chiropractic by Day, Wrestler by Night, Landon Hale. Landon, dude, thank you so much for doing this, for being our first guest.
Hey, it is an honor. I didn't even realize that it was the first one until you sent me that message saying that this is the premiere. I was like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool.
Here we go.
I'm honored. Thank you. Seriously.
Pressure is on, buddy.
Yeah. Pressure's on. No sweat. No sweat.
I'm already sweating. If you sweat, if anything, it'll just make me feel a little better. So don't.
It's hot outside, too, so I could use that as an excuse.
We're all on the East Coast somewhat. Yeah, it's pretty bad right now.
I have twin 3-year-olds, and they were playing in their water table out back earlier, and I was just kept being like, guys, no, you need help. Let me get in there. Let me get in.
Nice.
Mutually beneficial. I love it. Well, Landon, before we really dive into, I guess your career and some awesome matches that you recently had and are going to have, we love origin stories. Obviously, we're both big comic book nerds. We love to learn how Peter Parker became Spider-Man, all that good stuff. So for you, you probably gotten this question a million times, but how did you first get interested in wrestling, and what made you decide that you wanted to take that chance and become a professional wrestler?
So it's a little bit of a story because I was a fan of it growing up when I was like 5 years old. And so I'm from Kentucky, and not dissing anything about Kentucky when it comes to wrestling, but it's not as popular as you would see it in like the Southeast with like Georgia and Tennessee. It's not as popular like in the Northeast or anywhere on the East Coast, Pacific Northwest, on and on. So when I was born and raised in Kentucky, I didn't really have a lot of things to do. So it was like mostly basketball and baseball, football. There's like a lot of those big sports that you would see. So no one was interested in professional wrestling, at least on the indie scale. And I grew up watching it my whole life. When I was 5, that's when I first started getting into it. And I watched it with my dad. And that was like the one thing that we bonded on. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was very young. I was like 7. And when we had those moments together, I was like, okay, it's like one of the few things we bonded on along with other things. But I kind of went back and forth with watching wrestling, not watching wrestling. And then I got back into it around WrestleMania 20. And I saw Rey Mysterio, and that was my favorite. And that's my favorite wrestler ever. And I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy. And I just got back into it. And so I've been hooked on it ever since. And so I guess it's been back and forth from the time I was like 5 up until now. But even in 2018, one of my buddies, he's a wrestler, or I guess he did wrestling in Kentucky. And this was like almost 6 years ago. And he had a post one day on Facebook. It was just talking about name 2 wrestlers. And it was like, compare the wrestlers and I'll tell you which one's my favorite, that sort of Facebook post. And so I made my little, I gave my 2 wrestlers, and then we just kind of kept going through the comments there, just talking a little bit. And then all of a sudden I said, you know what? I have one life to live. Let's see what this has. So see what wrestling has to offer. So I shot him a message and I said, hey, how do you get into wrestling? And then he said, meet me at my friend's house in the next few days or however long it was. And he actually had a ring in his backyard, and he had to hold it there for a promotion at the time. And I was like, okay. So we went there. He showed me how to take a bump. I was sore as hell the next day, but it was amazing. I was like, this is something I can see myself doing the rest of my life. So we talked a little bit more, and he said, in order to get the best training, I want you to go to someone that can actually teach you the ropes because I'm not going to have time for it. And I said, no problem. So I actually got my first start with training under a guy by the name of Mike Sampson, which he used to wrestle in the WWF, but it was more so like the jobber stuff. He wrestled against the Hart Foundation, the Steiner brothers, because he was in a tag team. So I'm like, that's pretty cool. And you can just picture the scene. It's in Virginia, but it's in a basement. And it's like 1970s style, like iron rusted, weights. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger would go down there and lift weights. You have like these you'd have like these like Hulk Hogan cutouts and Ric Flair cutouts, Sting cutouts. I'm like, this is amazing. And then you walk into this other room and there's an old school wrestling ring where there's a spring in the middle. And this is like old school wrestling ring. So those bumps were awful.
What is the spring for?
So the spring is still, so like they tell you in wrestling that it's best to bump in the center of the ring, which it still is, for today, you should bump in the center of the ring. But I think the spring is supposed to be for more of support and it's supposed to make that extra sound. And so, because so now they use steel beams, which, that's a lot safer, I guess, well, in a technical sense, safer. But they had a spring in the center and they want you to bump in the center of it. So if you bumped anywhere else, it's just like taking a bump on the outside apron. So that's about that equivalent.
Wow.
I'm like imagining you like taking off and hitting the roof or something. But I know it's not that strong of a spring. But yeah.
Yes, but yeah. So I had two wrestling not two wrestling matches. I had two training sessions, and then I had my first ever wrestling match. It was awful. I'm sure you can find it somewhere on YouTube, but at least held my own for someone being, only two sessions, and so it was a good time. Had two wrestling matches there. I did a couple of more matches and a couple other training sessions. And then in September of 2018, I moved down to Georgia, and that's where I went to chiropractic school. And then I was looking into different schools there. And I know there's a lot, like including what used to be Nightmare Factory. It was called One Fall, I believe. And I was looking at different schools, and then I found All Pro Championship Wrestling Academy, and that's ran by Robert Gibson. Mike Sampson put in a good word for me. And I went down there. I trained with Robert Gibson for a few months. And then one of the big rules of wrestling is always make sure you bring your gear with you if you're at a show, because who knows who may not show up. I was there just doing security, and this was my first time being at a show. And this is just because I was diving into getting acclimated with chiropractic school, just seeing how I can juggle both chiropractic and wrestling. And then someone no-showed, and I decided to step up to the plate, and I was in the semi-main event for the tag team titles of that promotion. And I guess the rest there is history. So and it's five years later, I guess almost.
That's
6 years
amazing.
later.
That's so cool.
Even I know you said you didn't think it was your best match, but what was the feeling after wrestling that first match? Like, could you feel the bug like bite you, or was it still more of I'm feeling this out?
It was more of like a feeling this out. Like I definitely had like the energy, and it was like, oh man, like it's kind of like getting off a roller coaster rubber. It's like, wow, like that was really exciting. And it's like some rides you're like, okay, I may want to go on again. Others you're like, yeah, let's do this. So it was still in that roller coaster moment. And funny enough, I talked to my buddy a couple of days ago because we had this conversation, and he asked me about that, like that aha moment, that light bulb.
Sure.
And it was after that tag team match that I had when my buddy no-showed. It was the next show after that, because they would run once a month. And it was a very ironic statement that my partner didn't show up and my opponent's partner didn't show up. So we had a singles match for the tag team titles. And I still held my own. I was like, okay, I'm just going to do what I can. Went through the match. It was like a good 14-minute match. It was great. And then as soon as I came to the back, like I immediately just started crying. I was like, I can see myself doing this. And then Robert comes up to me and just gives me a hug, and he says, great job. I'm so proud of you. I'm like, this is that moment. Yeah. So I knew right there. Yeah.
But that's fantastic. I love stories like that. I'm a big crier, so I'm always happy to hear.
Oh, bro, me too. Me too, man.
Andrew and I, we're both actors, so we've had those aha moments, I feel, probably in the theater world where, I was a baseball player, and then our baseball coach made us try out for the musical in high school, which was Damn Yankees of all things. And dude, like I got up on that stage, I belted what do you what Andrew?
He
What do you got to
made you?
say?
Your baseball coach made you try out for the musical?
He respected the hell out of theater, and he said,
Fair enough.
I want you guys to try out for this. It would be cool
Yeah.
if like the baseball players actually were in the show Damn Yankees. And I auditioned, and I was one of 2 players that actually got cast in the show. And dude, same thing. After that first curtain call, I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not, but I still felt that at the time. So I know that aha feeling for sure. I think Andrew and I had that starting this podcast when we were at Monday Night Raw, not too long ago, actually.
Yeah, that was back in December. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were like, ding, ding, let's start a podcast. So that's so cool. Andrew, you want to take it next, man?
Yeah. So you're a chiropractor, and you were doing both those things at the same time, which I want to know what was there ever a moment while you were training for both of those things where you were like, I might have to step back on one of them, or was doing them both at the same time something that kind of helped propel you forward a little bit more, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And I think both of them, it was so easy to juggle. And I think and this is one of those moments that I will thank COVID, because even though that was like a tough time in a lot of our lives, it was easy for us, because when we were out of school, because like we had to be in class, but when COVID happened and, they had those restrictions, they didn't, obviously we didn't know back then what was going to happen. So they said, we're just going to do classes online. And so it was easy for me to do classes online and then still be able to keep up with my training. And even like during the first like year and a half when I was in school trying to do that, it was still easy for me to manage, because again, I'm still getting my start with wrestling. I wasn't expecting to be flown anywhere. I wasn't expecting to get these huge bookings that's going to like put me on TV or whatever. So I knew where I was in this big ocean that I'm in. And so I knew that Monday through Friday, it was school on the grind. Some days throughout the week, I would go train with Robert. It was mostly like a Wednesday or Thursday when everyone was there. And we would just train for like 3-4 hours, understanding psychology, understanding footwork, stuff like that. And then it would be like a Friday, Saturdays when I would start wrestling. And that's because it was an easy transition. So it was really easy for me to like actually do both at the same time. And to some people, like, yes, it is hard, and it's still hard for me to do both chiropractic and, wrestling right now, but I still make it work, because I work Monday through Thursday as a chiropractor. And then I easily transition through a Thursday night if I'm wrestling at Open, because I'm like 30 minutes away from Worcester. And then I'm, wrestling Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when I need to. So it's a good transition.
Yeah. And so we were talking earlier about like learning to take bumps, and obviously you deal with a lot of physical pain. Is there anything that being a chiropractor has anything about being a chiropractor help you think of ways to deal with managing your physical pain, with managing like taking bumps or making sure you're stretching, things like that?
Yes, and I do take care of myself. I make sure that I warm up properly. I make sure that, when I'm back home, and in case, something happens where I'm like, oh, like I feel like I tweaked my back or something like that. And thank the Lord, my wife is also a chiropractor. We actually met in chiropractic school, so she can take care of me if she needs to. And so I keep my spine in good alignment, make sure everything's good. And if I know that something's going on, like with wrestlers, we'll have like small nagging injuries, but not to the point of like being on the shelf for a while unless we know something happened. So one of the things that I had was I had a fractured wrist, and this was back in like September of 22. And this was one of those moments where I'm like, okay, like I feel like I'm going to be on the shelf for a while. But if it's like small nagging stuff where it's like, okay, just properly take care of yourself, that's when I know like, okay, listen to your body, see what it needs to do. So I kind of take that into consideration.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I feel like there's always that wear and tear, with a lot of wrestlers. It's not like these big, huge injuries, those happen obviously all the time. Freak accidents or just one missed move. But I think it's that wear and tear a lot of wrestlers say is where it really like it catches up to you eventually. So I'm sure being a chiropractor and training properly, warming up properly helps a lot instead of like getting out of the car and getting in the ring and just going at it. So that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, could you talk to us a little about I heard in an interview you saying like you wrestled one match for one promotion one night, and then like the next night you were in another promotion wrestling another match for another title. I can't even imagine sort of the whiplash that goes on with something like that as an indie wrestler, just like freaking ping pong all over the place. Before we get to your international stuff, what are some of those promotions, at least here, like in the US, that you've worked with, and what is it like, sort of going, to all these different things, maybe not even getting much time to like go over stuff. I don't want to like break kayfabe, but like working with certain wrestlers and stuff and having time to prepare. What is that all like?
It's different. I mean, it's different for some people because it just depends on who wants you. And I mean, again, wrestling is a business, so it's all about how you market yourself and how and like if a promotion wants you at one place, and then it's all about coordination, planning ahead of time. I remember like the most recent one that I had was with Action Wrestling. That, and I know we'll talk about that later about wrestling Mustafa Ali. I flew down to Atlanta, wrestled him, and then immediately slept for like maybe 4 or 5 hours, and then immediately got on a plane back to Boston. And then I had only maybe an hour or 2 hours just to kind of let my body rest. And then I drove to Worcester for Daikaiju Pro, and that's the show that, with them and set up out of Thailand. That's the connection there. But yeah, but like there's some places that you're on the go. There's some places where, again, like today, for example, like I'm wrestling for Chaotic, and then tomorrow I'm doing a seminar with Amazing Red. So there's just a lot of different, just you're go, but it's all about the time management. Like there's people that they don't really have much sleep at all. Like best example, wrestled out at Pro Wrestling Revolver out in Dayton, Ohio, drove 12 hours there. Didn't get much sleep in a truck, and then being able to wrestle, and then drove all the way back, and then just finally catching up on sleep. So it's part of the grind, though. It's all about getting to where you want to go. So that way, it's you work hard now and then you play hard later. So that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good for you, man. That's awesome. And as far as wrestling, you wrestled in Thailand, you wrestled in Germany. How, aside from the obvious differences, how different does that feel? You know what I mean? How is it maybe even dealing with any language barriers, or trying to, obviously you guys have a different kind of language that you can communicate through, but yeah, what's it like? What was your first international show like? I guess we can start there.
So my first one was, and funny enough, both of them were in March. I had Germany like early March, and then I had Thailand in late March. And
Congrats, dude.
It was such a cool experience. And also on top of that, my wife and I got to have our honeymoon during our Thailand trip because we were out there for 2 weeks. It was
perfect.
It was like a late, almost 2 year honeymoon, but we still made it work. But no, so going out to Germany, it was just a weekend thing. So I flew out to Dusseldorf, Germany, and wrestled for WXW. Great promotion, great scale, and I was on their beginner show, and it was kind of like, I wrestled against Stephen Wolf out of Texas, and he's a great talent, and just showcasing what I can do in front of that Germany audience. And they were on their feet the whole time. It was great, and it was such a cool experience. Flew back the next day, went to work Monday through Thursday, and then flew out to Thailand the following day with my wife. I was out in Bangkok for a week, and then I had the chance to do a seminar with Zack Sabre Jr. and El Phantasmo. Got to pick up their brain for a little bit, so that was really cool. And then the next day, wrestled against Monomoth, which I wrestled Monomoth for Daikaiju Pro, and that's how I got that opportunity to wrestle out in Thailand, and help put one of the few people to help put Thailand wrestling on the map, and it was great. Wrestled in front of 500 screaming fans. That it was such a different atmosphere, because you watch stuff on TV or you watch stuff like something online and you're like, wow, that crowd is crazy. And then you're like, you should have been there in person. That was one of those moments, because that crowd was electric from start to finish the whole night. So the international talent and the international audience, it's such a different experience, because everyone's used to poison off the Spanish fly, off the Canadian, through the barbed wire thumbtack table onto a headlock takeover, blow up, and everyone's like, oh, that's cool. Other places, they're like, wow, a suplex, and you're like, yes.
And when you get a juiced up crowd like that, how does that affect you in ring? Like, do you find yourself maybe leaning into certain things a little bit more, maybe like adding a little something in because you're like, oh, they're digging it. Let's do something off the top, or like, yeah.
1,000%. Yeah, it's all about reading the room and reading the crowd to see what it's like. Because if you have some people that, and it's one of those things in wrestling where they say like watch the next, like the show in front of you to see how they react. Because you may have two people that's like go, and then they may be like, oh, that's good, and it's like, okay, maybe we need to change it up a little bit, kind of get that feedback off of it. So it's always good to listen to what the crowd wants, because you can do all the cool stuff in the world, but they may not be interested in it, and vice versa.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
why not throw off the top?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I did stand up for a few years, and it's a similar kind of vibe. Like, you gotta know, like, you can't just expect every audience to like every single thing that you do. So that's so awesome to hear that stuff like that translates over to pro wrestling, and good for you for having that awareness and that that in-ring awareness. That's awesome, man.
I always wondered how much a crowd, like that dance, that communion between the wrestler and the audience, and like, how they feed off of one another. I've always found that so fascinating. And I would assume that's where like ring psychology comes in, and all that. Is that something you learn too, Landon, like in training and stuff? Is not only the technical stuff, but like working off of a tag team partner, or kind of feeling out how a match is going, or your character, even like that arc that you have to go through in not just like a storyline, but like a match itself being a story in its own right. What was that like, learning like almost this other thing other than just the technicality of wrestling?
Well, I mean, and in some aspects, you want to have the technicality part down, because you have some people that are into the bigger wrestlers. You have some people that are into there's different styles of wrestling. So you have people that are like big fans of bigger guys. You have some fans of like high athleticism. You like big fans of just character and how they, present themselves. It could be funny. It could be horror. It could be silly, whatever it may be. And so when it comes off to the crowd, you just have to like feed into it. Like once you come out, so like as an example, like if there's a guy that comes out, no one knows who he is. It's all about grabbing their attention within that second. It's kind of like a model runway where it's like grab their attention within that few seconds, like if they like it or not. Then you go from there, and again, Robert has always taught us, like you have like, even though you have like in some shows you may have like actual TV cameras, but the best camera angles are in front of you. So it's like A, B, C, and D talking about around the ring. And it's like you have to sell to them. You have to interact with them. And, you have to get a storyline down that people are going to follow. Because, yes, the moves are cool and it does add to the story. But if you're not getting the crowd involved, then what's the point of them being there?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Is there, I mean, you've been at it now for, I guess, a little over 6 years, or about around 5 or 6 years.
Almost 6 years, yeah.
Okay, no, that's awesome. Is there a match or experience that sticks out to you as being like really memorable? Something that you're just like, like an old favorite kind of a story, or like something where you're just like, this match against so-and-so was insane?
I've actually had a few this year.
Cool.
Obviously, one that I talked about was with Mustafa Ali. That was a great experience. And then right before the bell rang, they announced that it was going to be for the X Division title. So the 9-10-year-old in me was freaking out. I was like, this is so cool.
Landon Hale versus Mustafa Ali. This is the biggest match of my career. Mustafa, you're an incredible competitor, and I respect you. But I'm Landon Hale. I am not another name on your list. I am not another stop on the Ali Indie Tour. All the late night training sessions, all the hard work, all the setbacks has led me to this moment. I am the good doctor, and I'm here to prove that I'm on your level. I'm an international competitor, and I know that you've been where I'm going. So get ready, Mustafa. At Action Wrestling, I'm here to shock the world. See you in the ring. The doctor is in.
But no, I held my own, and it was against one of the top talents going today. This is kind of like when Cody Rhodes was on his indie scene. I see Mustafa as that type of talent that's doing that right now. And so
Big time.
just being,
Agreed.
yeah, and then just being able to hold my own against him, it was great. And he actually wrestled against a guy named Eagle Blanc, and that was his first ever wrestling match before coming to, or I guess his first wrestling match after, being released. So I got to wrestle Eagle Blanc. He came out from France, and he did WrestleMania weekend, and he was out there for a few extra days. And there's a show running, NFW, and I had the chance to wrestle him in a great 15-minute matchup that was literally just back and forth, and that was a great experience too. And just wrestling someone internationally, it does get you a different mindset of like, okay, what do I need to do going into this? How's the communication going to go? Because wrestling is international, but it is a good experience to wrestle someone that's not from your homeland or from the United States or Canada or whatever it may be. So it was such a good experience with those two matches, because that's definitely showed that, hey, I can compete with anyone. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just real quick, because I know we're saying it's a 15-minute match. It's back and forth. What's your cardio like? How much do you have to like just
That
Are we
Mustafa
hitting-
match, man. I
Yeah,
was like out of breath just watching it. It was insane.
Are we hitting the treadmill every day? Are you more of an outside runner? What do you have to do to prepare for that level of cardio?
So right now I'm training with New England Pro Wrestling Academy, and that's what keeps the sword sharpened sometimes. So whenever I go in, make sure that everything in the toolbox is well maintained, and so I take full advantage of that when I can. I go in there, I lift weights, and even during the weeks, because again with my my work schedule, working as a chiropractor Monday through Thursday, I'm trying to get my workouts in between lunch. So there's a local gym that I go to and get my workouts there. And then the days that I have off where I'm either wrestling or I'm just resting, I just go in and I just roll around in the ring. I have all that access to myself, and then just keep my cardio up that way, because whatever you do in the ring, it mimics what you do in a wrestling show. So I try to keep my cardio up as much as I can. So I'm not saying that I have the best cardio in the world, but I do the best that I can, and I think I do keep up with the best that I can. So
Sure. Oh, that's awesome.
Now, I guess moving away from the Mustafa match, you also had a match. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is with Wrestling Revolver.
Yes.
Yeah. What can you tell us a little about that and kind of what that was like after having this huge match with Mustafa? Now it seems like the ball is just rolling, man, like uphill in a good way.
Let me tell you, Wrestling Revolver is one of the top places that you want to be. It was the crowd there is so electric, and again, it's one of the most popular streaming shows that you can be on. And I had the opportunity to Revolver put up, and that's one of their promo videos that they do, and it's like do a presentation of yourself, and then just cut a promo, see the reason why we want you to be here. I did my thing, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the two to be picked to be in that scramble, and I got to showcase what I can do. It was just like a rush of adrenaline, like any other show. And I was like, oh man, that felt great. Just felt like I did a few things right, and it seems like things are going up. But even just being backstage with a lot of guys that you see on TNA that used to be in the big times with WWE and stuff like that, it's awesome to be in their ear, pick at their brain sometimes, and just be in that locker room, just because it's like everyone wants to be at that next level. So you're in a room, you're in the locker room with people that wants to make it to the next level. So you need to have that chip on your shoulder, but it's still such a great experience, especially with Revolver. That's one of the best places.
Is there a piece of advice that you've gotten from a more seasoned wrestler that has really stuck in your head that you just hear rolling around more than anything else?
Be a brother, be a good person at the end of the day, and no lie. And that comes from Zack Sabre Jr. That was one of the questions I asked him. And when he asked me that, I was like, oh, that stuck with me. And I was like, what's the best thing that you can do as a wrestler? And it's be a good person at the end of the day. There's going to be a lot of people. And, again, we're going to have our days where we're just like, like, I don't want to talk to this person, or, like just have a great attitude. No one, wrestling doesn't owe you anything. You do a lot when it comes to, putting in the work and put in the grind with this. And at the end of the day, your reactions and your persona, however you present yourself, is going to reflect how you come out with wrestling. So just be a good person at the end of the day. Be great to everybody. I mean, you don't have to be the nicest person to people, obviously, like, in regards, but in those moments, it's like, just be a good person at the end of the day. And that's something I'm like, okay, like, I try to be the best person I can be at the end of the day for myself. But even in those moments, it's like, you have to remember, we're all human at the end of the day.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm sure it also helps you get booked more as well. Nobody wants to book somebody who's just like that no one wants in the locker room.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah. Oh, good on you, man. That's awesome.
That's so good to hear, especially Andrew. I was just going to mention, because you hear all these horror stories about like the backstabbing and the competitive nature of trying to, get ahead of somebody. And it's good to hear that even on the indies, where I'm sure you guys are super, super hungry, that you're keeping that mindset of like, we're all here to kind of punch each other up, as it were. So that's cool. That's cool. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I think even too, like when it comes to wrestling, like like some people, they're like, you have some snakes in the grass, and it's like it's just a general statement. It's not like a specificity on anyone. It's like you have some people that are like, they'll try their hardest to snake their way up to the top, and that's fine. But it's like sometimes, like I get down on myself if I'm not on a show, and I'm sure you'll hear this from other wrestlers as well. It's like they'll send a message to a promotion, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll think about you in the future, or they just leave you on read and they don't say anything. Then it's just kind of like, okay, what do I need to do now? And it's like, you show up, you help put up the ring, you help do whatever's needed, you get those opportunities, and some of those shows I have done, and it's got me big opportunities like that. And so, like, some people are saying like, hey, Landon, just keep being a good person, just keep showing up, just keep doing your thing. Everyone is going to have a different road. So even if it means that my road may take a little bit longer to get where I want to be, then that's totally fine compared to someone that just made it there. So everyone's got their different avenues, and it's all about the journey that gets there. So why rush getting to that point when you can just enjoy the journey that you're on?
Yeah,
Totally.
That's awesome. And I feel like we can all agree that wrestling is kind of like a peak popular, maybe not even a peak, like it's just more popular than it's been in quite some time currently, which is really exciting. What do you think is kind of like responsible for that? But also, how are you going to ride that wave? How are you taking advantage of this kind of renewed popularity for pro wrestling?
I don't know, to be honest. And that's a really good question, because again, back in my day when, again, third, fourth grade, watching SmackDown and Raw and stuff like that, like no one was really like that interested. And it's very hard to find the few people that had the same interest as you. And, now you hear people talk about wrestling, no matter if it's WWE, New Japan, AEW, TNA, the Indies, GCW, Revolver. There's a lot of different styles and flavors of wrestling that people can sink their teeth into. And so now it's kind of like, okay, it's the exact same thing like seeing a movie. You have your comedy, you have your horror, you have your romantic novels. Like, you have a lot of these different styles of wrestling. So I know, like, GCW, Revolver, WWE, AEW, like they all have their different styles that people can sink their teeth into. Because nowadays we see on social media, this AEW show, blah, 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 WWE's better, vice versa. So I think people can, people can sink their teeth into whatever promotion that they want and be able to enjoy wrestling however they would like. And obviously you're going to have the naysayers and the people that complain about stuff, and that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, wrestling is a beautiful thing. And I'm just glad that at least a lot more people are actually getting more involved in it. So we're trying to ride that wave as best as we can.
Yeah. No, and look, a rising tide lifts all boats. You know what I mean? Like, that's if it's great to have more companies. Whenever I see people, they're like, "Oh, I want so and so to go down." I'm like, "Why? We need them all. Like, if it's popular, it's popular. That's great for everybody. We're all eating."
Exactly.
We've all got a place at the table. Well, I'd love to know, man. I mean, I know you're bouncing from promotion to promotion, and everyone dreams of making it to the top and all that. But dream matches. Do you have anyone that you can think of off the top of your head who you really want to wrestle, whether it's in the indie circuit or up to the quote unquote big leagues? Do you have any dream matches or people you'd like to work with?
Funny enough, I forgot where it was. I think it was on Facebook or something, but I had like a top 5 list of like high flyers or like of wrestlers that I would like to be in the ring with. And funny enough, I think it was, and I don't know where it's at. It's lost somewhere, but I recall putting this down. But I did put down Mustafa as one of my people. So the fact I got to share the ring with him, that was yep, check mark. Definitely, like I've looked up to legends like Rey Mysterio, AJ Styles, sure. And like that would be great to be in the ring with them. And then one of my another inspiration of getting into wrestling was Will Ospreay, and I'd definitely would love to be in a wrestling ring with him, Ricochet, and then there's a lot of other people on the indies as well that I'd like to get in the ring with too, like TJ Crawford, Alec Price, Jordan Oliver. So those are like some top guys that I know that I can hang with them and just showcase what I can do. So those are kind of a few of the guys at the top of my head.
Andrew, write those names down, buddy.
Yeah. and
Our
so
upcoming guests.
And I know we're getting a little bit closer to time, but when did you start feeling that you could hang in those situations? You know what I mean? Was that a kind of confidence that you've kind of had to have throughout? Or is it something more where you're like, after a few years, you were finally like, I think I'm ready to put me in the ring with anybody and I'm ready to go?
I think it was and going back to, when I first started off, there's some people right at the get-go, they're like, oh, I want to be on TV. I want to do this. And they're dream chasing and they're putting the cart before the horse. And in some of those moments that I did a few years ago, I remember doing a TV show. It's called Championship Wrestling from Atlanta. And this was their first ever show. And I wrestled a big guy named Juicy Finau. Love that dude. Great guy. I wrestled in a 2-3 minute match. Nothing crazy. I'm just kind of upset with myself. Or I'm just kind of it's a great opportunity, but you want more. But then you go back and so where I'm at right now, it's kind of you think back into your mind those moments when you have those matches, when the promotions, they didn't give you those chances. And you're like, okay, maybe it wasn't my time to be in the ring at that moment. Maybe it wasn't my time for those shots. And so again, I've worked my ass off with different places, just showing up, shutting up and, showing out, just kind of getting my gears rolling, making sure that I'm doing the right thing. And I think it was one of those days where I did the Scenic City Invitational last year in 2023, and I was the underdog going in. Split my head open in the first round. Long story short, I caught Eli on a dive, and as I came back, it wasn't the fold-up chairs. It was the hardwood pew chairs where it's got the sharp edges. And so I split my head, and I ended up having to get 6 staples the next day.
Yikes!
And the guys were like, "Hey, if you need to pull out, no problem. We'll find someone." I'm like, I'm still gonna wrestle. So I wrestled with the bandage on my head, and I came runner up. Which, if you want to watch it, it's on. I don't know if you guys have IWTV, but if you guys if you guys have IWTV, type in Scenic City Invitational. Do the first round, and I was gushing blood that whole match, and I was really surprised that I went through that. But after that match, one of my buddies, I dedicated my finishing move. It's called the SPO driver. Sean Patrick O'Brien, he was a referee, and he did a lot of reffing for the Midwest, the Southeast, a lot of GCW, and he unfortunately passed away at a young age. So I dedicated my finisher to him. I came to the back, I started crying my eyes out, and I'm just like, okay. Next day, wrestled again, lost to Manders in the finals, and I was second place, and that's totally fine, and then the next few shows after that, I was on a good roll, and then I've had these big opportunities, and the biggest one being Mustafa, and someone comes up to me, is like, Landon, it's not deserved, it's earned, and it's you definitely earned this. And so I'm just kind of okay, I need to be more confident in myself with what I'm doing. Did Revolver, and now got a few other things coming up. So I've been more honed with myself, saying okay, I'm getting more confident now with my abilities.
Good for you, man.
I wasn't expecting to get misty-eyed during the episode, dude, but that's beautiful. It is.
I'm going to watch that match. But did you play up the head injury when you were in that match?
Yeah. Of
What
course.
a dumb question.
Sure. It's almost like kind of
the
built
arm.
in.
He was working the arm, brother.
Yeah.
The next day I wrestled BK Westbrook, and BK literally just took the bandage off my head, started punching me. Adam Priest got pliers and was getting ready to pull out, like in the finals, like he's getting ready to pull out pliers. If you see that, you're like, wow, this is psychotic, but it was good.
I love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome. There was one. I had one more question before we get to what comes next, Landon. What advice would you give? So, like, we're doing Somewhere in the Indies, not just, for interviews, but to help other indie wrestlers, like, learn from mistakes or learn from people who are making it up the rung, as it were. So, what advice would you give anyone? Maybe just getting involved in indie wrestling, or is going through the trials, tribulations, challenges that you are?
Be patient. A lot of people, when they get into wrestling, they think that they're ready to get in the ring. And you can tell for the people that they're anxious to get in there to the ones that they're ready. There's moments where, again, wrestling my first few matches, even though they were awful, you realize that, hey, maybe it wasn't my time to be in that wrestling ring. And there's some people that are like, oh man, like I want to get in there. I know I can do it. And it's just like, we know when you're ready, you got to be patient. You have to understand it's just like literally working your way to the top. There's always going to be struggles. There's always going to be heartaches. There's always going to be doubts. But at the end of the day, you're doing this for you. And if you want it bad enough, then you'll work your ass off to get to those moments. So that's what I've said to people. And, like I've had those moments where I'm just like, I help set up the ring and tear down. And I've had moments where I broke down and cried and I'm like, why am I not on this show? Why am I not doing this? But then at the end of the day, if that door doesn't open for you, or if that door doesn't open for you, then it's not yours to knock on. Don't worry about the doors that are closed. Go to the ones that are going to give you that open opportunity. It's going to lead you down a path that's going to be better than what you expected. So you just got to be patient.
Oh, hell yeah, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Andrew, anything else, buddy?
Oh, what's the hardest part about setting up a ring?
Oh God, everything.
I was guessing the turnbuckles, but I don't know.
I would say the beams. The beams aren't that bad, but to be honest, it's kind of like the worst part, which is also kind of the best part, is when you like for some shows, like if you have like your home promotions or if you have promotions that you're going to help out, it's the ones where like you tear down the ring and then you go back to the center and then you help set up. So like I've done that for Robert's School, and I've also done that for Chaotic when we would go back to New England Pro Wrestling Academy. And it's just like sharing those moments and the camaraderie where you're just like, oh, like we hate this, but hey, we're all here doing it at the same time. It's kind of like Army where it's like, oh yeah. Like we hate this, but we're here doing this together. So it's a caveat, but yeah. So it's a kind of indifferent thing, but it is what it is. Yeah.
Cool.
It is what it is.
So what you got coming up? What's on the docket? What are you most excited about? What can people listening look forward to?
So I am wrestling. I'm wrestling today. I don't know if it's going to be on Twitch or not, but I'm wrestling for Chaotic Wrestling. We're wrestling out of Boston. I know the next next show that I have up, I am the BST champion. They're out of Connecticut. So I don't think they're streaming live on IWTV, but they do post their shows on IWTV, and I'm in a triple threat match defending the title. So that's great.
Cool.
Wrestling for Northeast Wrestling in Connecticut as well. And I'm wrestling Brett Ryan Gosselin for the NEW Live Championship. What else? I have a few others I'm trying to think of, but the biggest thing coming up for me is the Scenic City Invitational for this year, and I plan on winning it this year. And no head splits. No head splits.
Yeah. Let's go.
Dude, we are in your corner for that one, that's for sure.
Thank you.
One last very nerdy kind of nitpicky question that I've always wondered. When you win a belt for a promotion, do you get to keep it? Do they hold on to it? Do they give you a copy that you can kind of like, you have it forever just to show that you won?
It's a multitude of all of those.
Gotcha.
I know some promotions are old school where they keep the belt. I mean, like in the few promotions I wrestle for, they hold on to the belt, and that's just because if said person can't make it, or if they have to drop it, if they get signed somewhere, or if they get injured, it's like they can have that. and then there's other times where like I hold on to the belt and, you know, I take pictures with it. I showcase it everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I'm able to hold on to it and wrestle. But unfortunately I do have to give it up. So I just got to spend as much time with it as can. But yeah, now the other one where they give you like the replica, I've never had that. So that may be,
okay.
That may be later on. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I would be wearing that thing in the grocery store, at work. Oh man, that's awesome.
Hey guys, I had the championship. You know, I did damn Yankees.
Where's my damn Yankees title belt? Landon, buddy. Well, first of all, I want to get a shout out to independentwrestling.tv. That's where I got to watch your Mustafa match. I highly suggest people subscribe because that's where you're going to see a lot of these independent matches and promotions, and Wrestling Revolver you mentioned as well. But last question before we let you go here. I know you got to go wrestle. I can't believe I'm saying that. That's awesome.
Yes.
Where can we find everything you're up to, man? And give us the socials and all that, or whatever. This is your time.
Awesome. And so I do have, and so again, everyone has a wrestler name and their real name. So my real and wrestling name is all the same, Landon Hale. If you find me on Facebook, and I repeat this to like every single podcast that I'm on, please give the one fan page a thumbs up. Don't add me as a friend. I don't know who you are, Rebecca. I'm sorry. Please don't add me.
You hear that, Rebecca?
Hear that, Rebecca? No, you can just hit the thumbs up button on the Landon Hale fan page. Instagram is Landon Hale 3. On Twitter, it's at Halea3. I'm a punny person. You can find a lot of my matches on YouTube, and you know that you have some that are very old, and then you have some that are up on YouTube that have been recent, like my match against Eggle Blanc. You can actually watch that on there. It's full on YouTube, which is awesome. Pro wrestling tees. I have Good Doctor shirts out. If you want to support me there, you can grab a shirt from there. I also sell my own merch at other shows that I'm on there too. So the doctor will be out, and watch your back.
Yeah.
Nice.
Landon, thank you so much, man. This is really fantastic. For as far as inaugural episodes go, I don't think we could have asked for a better guest.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we'll put all links to all your stuff in the show notes, guys. If you're in the towns that he's wrestling in, please go support these companies, these promotions. Go see Landon. Tell him we sent you. And again, Landon, thank you for joining us somewhere in the Indies, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us somewhere in the Indies. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the Indies.